Hello everyone. I just restarted the video because I'm having some poor connection I think on this end. So I'm just going to wait for Sylvia to come on and request to go live with me. I don't know if you caught me earlier saying Sylvia is a brilliant wedding florist based here in Ireland under the name Bella Botanica. So if you aren't familiar with her, definitely go onto her Instagram page and check her out. Her flowers are just beautiful. They're so organic looking, they're nothing fussy and just absolutely amazing. So I am just going to wait for Sylvia to request to come live with me. You can't join. Okay. There should be a button there, Sylvia, for you to join, to request to go live. Let me see if I can get her on here. Go live.
Hi.
Good morning. How are you?
Eventually, sorry about that. I think there's connection issues on both ends.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been having all week, so
How are you keeping?
okay, doing my best to keep as busy as I can with no work.
I know it's a bit surreal, isn't it? I should have been working on a gorgeous wedding today, but sure, hey, what can we do?
That's it. At least the sun's been shining, so
Yeah, that's the plus. Making it easier to work from home.
exactly. So Sylvia, I was telling everyone how you are, your work and anything about it. Because wedding floristry, obviously, is one of the details. I don't think you flowers. It just wouldn't be. Didn't have wedding flowers on the day. But with the live, we're just we're not, I'm going to.
You're breaking up, Christina.
No problem. I think you might have to wait a minute and bear with.
Okay. I'll have to lip read.
I'll try and talk slower.
Okay.
Can everybody else hear it? If it's from my end or from Sylvia? I was. We're gonna shortish. Can you hear me? Okay.
It's going in and out, so I can hear like little bits. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine. So I don't know if it's me. It must be me. Let me see. Is that any better?
A little bit better. It's just a bit glitchy. So there's parts of your voice
Okay.
missing. I'd say it's the Wi-Fi connectivity. Everyone's on at the same time trying to connect.
Tell me I have 4G, so I think we'll. Hey, everyone, can anyone tell us if that and how they're here?
I can see the Village Garden Black Rock. Could you let us know if you can hear Christina, or is it breaking up in certain parts? That would be great, please, so we can figure out what the crack is. Or anyone in there.
Yeah. I wonder if I just restart this again. Lots of people joining.
There's lots of people joining. I hope they can hear us.
I don't know. Can anyone hear us?
Your screen has gone a little bit fuzzy. So maybe it is a Wi-Fi connectivity. Sounds okay. Thanks, Elaine. Okay, so we'll start talking. Elaine, will you let it, you can be the moderator. Can you let us know if the sound is really glitchy? That would be brilliant. Thank you.
I'll do my best to talk slow.
Okay.
So I want to start with trends.
Okay.
If you see anything that you see at every wedding, it's going to be a trend for happening in the wedding. Obviously, there's not right now, but
yeah. Well, we've seen kind of pampas grass and like dried florals being, I suppose, a major part of weddings last year. And I know that the weddings that were happening this year, they were going to feature quite heavily in it. I'd say by the time the weddings start back off, maybe 2021, the pampas grass will probably be done, I'd say. It's not the nicest thing to work with.
It's a what isn't aware of what it is.
Pampas grass is the tall, feathery plume that you see grown in a lot of gardens.
Okay.
It's a real has a real 70s vibe to it.
They're not dried flowers because they dried flowers in a way.
They're dried flowers, yeah, and a lot of people use them in installations and backdrops. I did a few last year where they were hanging installations. So they're a really dried flower, and you see them in lots of gardens and stuff. And you need to dry them out so they become nice and fluffy. And then you've seen a lot of like the gold elevated stands, the geometric stands, and they have been predominantly used in weddings. And I can see that continuing. Maybe creating a different style, like the design on top, maybe something with like a Hogarth curve where it's more asymmetrical, where it's taller on one side, there's a dip in the middle, and then it goes up. It'd be nice to see some different shapes with that, because you kind of see the same design again and again. It'd be nice to change it up. But in wedding flowers, the trends are all cyclical. You see stuff from years ago coming back in. Like there was the whole cascade and bouquet.
Yes, yeah.
That everyone was going crazy for maybe like 2 years ago, and like years before that, that was a massive trend, like where the bouquet trailed down to the ground.
And I remember,
did you?
What was I thinking? But yeah, so they
it just goes round. It goes round in circles. But I would like, I suppose I'm not really led by trends, and I try to advise couples not to just like, you know, choose a fad that's gonna look like it's gonna be dated when they look back at their wedding photographs.
Yeah.
What I like to create is something kind of romantic and organic looking.
Yeah.
So that it is timeless.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's still really beautiful, and so kind of bringing the garden in, but more refined and elegant. I suppose that's probably the style. I'm not a massive fan of the super tight bouquets where the flowers don't have much space to kind of breathe and shine. But each designer is different, and each couple is different, you know.
That's very organic, and it's like you just picked it straight out.
If it was only that easy, just pick it up.
Going back to what you're saying about the trend with the geometric, where they like, are they for like the centerpieces and stuff?
Yeah.
Florists provide, or is that something like you would expect a couple or provide?
Floral designers usually provide these stands. So within the cost of the design, there will be maybe a small hire fee for the stand, and then the floral design is included. We don't use floral foam in any of our designs. So we were in the middle of getting a steel fabricator to make specific stands, like those gold ones, but with a bowl at the top for a water source instead of using like a big piece of foam. It's just more sustainable that way. So the floral designers usually provide them. It'd be a big ask for the couple to get them made.
Yes,
they're quite pricey. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask something that would be better to know whether they need to provide that.
Yeah, floral designers usually provide most of like the bowls, the votives, the candle holders. That's usually the way it works. You might see sometimes couples have like maybe candlesticks that are special to them that they want included on their head table, or small design items from home. But usually it's a floral designer that will provide all the props.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's. And are those? I assume those are all the flowers.
Sorry, what was that, Christina? I missed you there breaking up.
I assume that's all extra cost on top of.
Yeah, so you can hire gold candlestick holders or silver. And there's like I think a €3 hire fee for each little candlestick, and then it depends on your budget. So you can go for standard taper candles or beautiful tapered Esther and Eric, which are quite expensive, but they come in beautiful colors. So it really depends on where you want to put your budget. But those details, I think, really make a tablescape for a wedding.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking on trends, is, is there something that you think have weddings that maybe will, you know, a month or within the year?
I'm hoping, like, the hanging installations, I suppose, have been a big thing, and big backdrops. So I'm really hoping that that stays, and I hope, like, there is a big push at the moment on dried florals, and foliage. And to be honest, I try to steer away from that because they're all bleached, and treated with chemicals, and that's not really my, what would you say, practice as such. I'm trying to be sustainable as possible, so I'd love it to shift away from that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, speaking of that, I was on a dry flowers, the flowers, and up the bleach and the flowers can actually the suits or the dress, so you have to be careful.
yeah, like some floral designers. There's one girl that came to one of my workshops, Shannon, and she dries her own flowers, which is perfect. Like, they're naturally dried, they're hung up in a warm space, and that they're beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous. But it's the ones that are chemically bleached and have gone through a crazy process before they even come to you. I'm not mad about it can look really beautiful, but I'm not mad about the process. It's just adding more chemicals to the environment that we don't already need. So I try to steer away from that. So I'm hoping it's going to become more organic, and I hope the focus is going to be on more sustainable designs and a shift away from using floral foam if possible. That would be brilliant.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And speaking about being like environmental conscious, then does the year, like the time of flower you use, certain flowers at certain times of year, like help?
You're breaking up a little. Did you say, does the time of year influence the seasonality of the flowers?
Yes, kind of more like, being what flowers at certain times, like.
Yeah. So we source our flowers from kind of two different areas. So we have local growers that we can get like gorgeous garden roses in their seasons, their first flushes now, which is really disappointing because they smell so gorgeous and I'd love to get my hands on them. And there are local growers that will provide flowers up until about September, and then their season really changes. And in the autumn winter, there's not a whole lot like you can source locally. So we combine both. We use local growers when we can, and then we source from Holland, and try to be as sustainable as possible, which is tricky when you come into the winter months and there's not a whole lot of choice because it's seasonality. And then brides are looking for garden roses and all those other gorgeous things out of season.
Yeah. I question comes to with inspiration for their bouquets. Do you work so use put your own take on that, or would you actually create exact image that with?
I never create the exact image. I don't like doing it. It's like, and I try to remind the couple. I say, like, that's someone else's piece of work that they've designed, and I'm not the type of person to create the same design again and again and again. So what they usually do is come with images and they say, I love the color palette in this. And I take different parts of it. So the color palette in this, the shape of this, the aesthetic of that, and the feel of it. And I take bits, like they come up with their Pinterest boards. So I take elements of the different images to come up with a design. So it is a lot of trust, because they're not going to see exactly what they're going to get in the day. They have an idea in their head, obviously, of the color palette, the style, the shape. But they have to put their trust in me. And if they like what they see on my Instagram page and on my website, they're always really, really happy. Then you can figure out if our style matches.
Yeah. I suppose, a bride ways you wouldn't want to have same thing as someone else. So
No, you want to have a unique bouquet to yourself and unique designs.
yeah,
That's what brings your personality to your wedding day.
absolutely. Is there any color combinations that you feel work or that you just do for like
It's Yeah, it's a bit tricky because sometimes people come with color palettes and they're like, these are my favorite colors, and you just know that they're not really going to work so well. So like red and white
okay, yeah, yeah, because
is a super tricky combination. They just they just clash. I think they just clash. What I do suggest to people, if they do like the red, I maybe suggest instead of the white, maybe to add some nude tones, like really soft nudes, so it's not such a jump from one like spectrum to the other. And like sometimes in photographs, all you can see is the red just
yeah,
sitting there. And the same with really dark purple and white. Putting white with really dark colors doesn't really work for me.
yeah,
But you can like bring in, there are color choices that do seem a bit out there and you think they wouldn't work, like adding mustards with like pale blushes. Um, they can really work well, but it's the starkness of the white against the red. And I don't think it's easy to photograph. What would you say?
yeah. No, absolutely. When you have very, it is a little bit to work with. So I agree. That one. I thought blue and yellow, or yeah, have you?
You can kind of like, I suppose, I've never done, well, the most colorful wedding I've ever done had got like some blues in it, some pinks, some yellows, but it's the way, I suppose, like the scale of the color you're putting in. Like you just can put little pops of it in, so it's not overpowering and doesn't look like just like a colorful mess.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And it's the scale of the flowers that you use, whether they're like large-headed ones or just like small, delicate florals that don't overwhelm the whole design. So yeah, there's a lot to think about when you're using an unusual color scheme to
yeah.
make it work. But the
True.
usual standards, blush is still a big thing. Blush,
Of course. Yeah.
yeah, blush and nudes.
I think
Um,
you just start to see like her shades start to become than it used to be.
yeah, people are starting to be a little bit more adventurous and maybe introducing like rusty tones in with their blushes, which I think is gorgeous. And like darker foliage is beautiful in the winter, and in the autumn, I think it's fab.
Yeah. Darling Buzz Louise, that this I learned this this year too that red's totally pops and takes over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so many different shades of reds. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I
yeah.
all reds, or like are you talking about like pinks? Like would that be the same type?
No, like when people usually talk about the reds, talk about the reds and then the burgundies, like going deeper and deeper. And I think you can have red, and even I've done a shoot before where it was like red and like a pale blush, and it did work, and nudes, and it worked really, really well. It's just the white, just I don't know, just screams together.
Yeah, you need to have a range in there, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just an easy transition with the eye.
Yeah, no, I totally. Um, ooh, talking now more, but are there any colors that are kind of on the more budget friendly side, big impact? The cost of the bouquets down.
Um, Obviously, I love working with really luxurious flowers, like the garden roses, the scented garden roses, and like peonies when they're in season. But there are ways for like larger designs, and I do suggest this to couples because quite often when they hear like carnations or chrysanthemums, and I was a complete like flower snob. My friends used to give me like a terrible slag, and other floral designers. You can use like there's some gorgeous tones in carnations, those peachy nudie tones that when they're pushed back in a design in an arch, it just shows like the hint of color. And then you can have some roses coming to the forefront. I think that's a way of bringing costs down a little bit instead of doing like an arch or a centerpiece, just all garden roses.
Yeah,
Um, And there's also like, I suppose, a substitute for dahlias when they're not in season are like, you can get gorgeous burgundy chrysanthemums. They have a really big head. And they also do it in a lovely kind of peachy salmony color, which can look lovely. And I prefer to put those type of flowers kind of deeper into the design so that they're not the focal flower, but they just take up some space where a more expensive flower would have been, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and what
hydrangea would be another one. I don't tend to use a lot of hydrangea because it's quite big, and it becomes a focal flower in a design. And I know a lot of designers do use it, and couples love it. So if hydrangea is one of your favorite flowers, that can be quite impactful in big designs, because it's a massive flower head.
And what about like the green? About choosing, or do you always kind of work with the greenery for?
It depends on the time of year. So coming into the summer, I love using birch and beech. And there's a local grower to me, and she's the lady that does the garden roses. But she also last year supplied me like massive branches of beech and birch that I used in big archways and big table centers. So I love those more natural types of foliage that have that natural bend and curve, and they're not super straight when they come from Holland. And when obviously they are not in season, we tend to use like the eucalyptus, Italian ruscus, and those type of things. And if we are making something that has to last the day, maybe out of water in an arch, we will choose the foliage that's not going to drop super quick.
Right.
Or else if there's ways of hiding like water vials or buckets or something, we will put the most, I suppose, vulnerable stems into those to stop them from dropping.
Yeah, perfect. I had a few questions over the last couple of days. So I'm gonna. First one is.
I missed that. I can't do.
I'm gonna run through a few questions from a few people over. The first one is conscious of when changing season, flower choice and color.
Okay, so I suppose the most the one that pops to mind is like if you're changing from now where all the gorgeous peonies are coming in until July, you need to be conscious of that. So obviously they're in season for such a short amount of time. So what your floral designer can do is, if it's a peony you love because it's nice and full and fully petaled, they should choose something to replicate that. So maybe a fluffy garden rose that has a fluffier center that will emulate the same shape and style as your peony. Color palettes as well can sometimes change. It really depends on if dresses have already been bought and they're going to reuse their bridesmaids' dresses. And the venue is really, really important too, because obviously we're not going to use a color palette that totally clashes with the venue. It has to look really, really cohesive. But I know couples are like, they're in the situation now and they're stressing out because they should be getting married right now or even in July and August, and they're freaking out about the seasonality of flowers and stuff. What I would just say is trust your floral designer, that they will come up with an even more beautiful color palette and flower offering than they originally proposed, because they're going to do their very, very best by you. You'll still get the same like aesthetic, whether it's a romantic vibe or more modern. Try not to worry about it too much, because there are certain flowers, if they're not in season, you can get something similar and a similar color palette. So not to worry too much about it.
Absolutely. The key there is that you trust your florist.
Yeah.
It's going to be beautiful in the end.
Yeah.
So the next question I had was, what looks best for church door? Prioritize.
So I missed the end of that. So you said what looks best at a church door?
Yes, and what should we prioritize?
Okay, so yeah, what I would say about churches is that sometimes people try to spread their budget out super thin, and they go for like, I don't know, 20 pew ends, and the pew ends don't have that much of an impact. So what I usually suggest to people is think about, from your guest point of view, the journey they're taking to your wedding, what greets them first. So I would always have something at the church entrance. And it's budget dependent. So that could be like 2 large urns on the ground or higher up on plinths, or a deconstructed arch where one side of the arch is done, which is obviously cheaper than a full arch.
They're beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's where all your pictures are taken outside the church, is in front of that entrance. And then to have maybe something nice on either side of the altar, but I would forgo pew ends and put the budget somewhere else, because they get knocked and they don't have a massive impact. That's just my opinion.
Gemma, every second or third. I don't know what I've tried getting off my phone.
I'm lip reading you, Christina.
Yeah, sorry about that, everyone.
It's okay.
One more question. More questions. What's your favorite style?
I love that really organic, kind of asymmetrical style. So where the bouquet kind of sweeps up a little bit to one side and it's a little bit lower, and the flowers have space, like even some negative space, a little kind of a dip. They're my favorite bouquets to make, and I think I'm just drawn to them. I just think they're gorgeous and organic. They are my favorite. I don't like making super tight designs. It's just not me.
It's not you, yeah.
It's not me.
And the last question from Katie. I believe you did.
Don't let her ask a question.
Was asking, maybe she's asking for her.
It's breaking up. Say that again. What did you say? How do you go about what?
Picking a color scheme.
Okay. So usually couples come to, I know why she's asking this actually, because I'm going to use Katie as an example, because Katie is like a super colorful person in like personality and loves like bright colors, but she was a little bit wanting to stay on the safe side of using color for her wedding. And I kind of convinced her to use the brighter colors, the colors that she loved, just using pops of them. And it worked out really, really well. And you know what? It was a really good representation of her personality and what she's all about. So I would say to couples is like, try to be a little bit more like braver with your color palette choices. Like blush is gorgeous with nudes and stuff. But if you do like other colors, ask your floral designer's advice on whether it would look cohesive, whether it will tie in with the venue. Like it's great if you have a venue, like Katie got married in Hortown House where it's a blank canvas. So there's no like crazy red and yellow carpet or anything like that to deal with. So it's perfect to take any color palette. So the venue is important, and the spaces. And then I would nearly sometimes then base your bridesmaids dresses off your favorite colors and your color palette. Quite often it's the other way around. It's like I have these blush bridesmaids dresses, so my color palette has to be this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where I'd prefer if they chose their favorite colors.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Katie.
Maybe she's planning her vow renewal in a few years.
Yeah, I could do with a job, Katie. I'm here. I'm available.
Sylvia, that's been brilliant. I know it's hard for everybody to hear me, but while everyone's on, if there's last question, Sylvia, before we pop off, please now.
I can see Peter Carville in there.
Yeah.
Hi, Peter.
Elaine says, brilliant advice, Sylvia. Love you.
Oh, thanks, Elaine. She was one of my students on my Mandap course that we did before the lockdown. So, yeah, it was brilliant to get that done with a few people. Little did we know what was ahead.
I know.
At least you get to have a nice summer off.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. How often do you have our...
Never. We may not want it, but we have to just make the best of it.
Let's hope it's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, Sylvia, that was brilliant. I don't think I have any questions.
Christina, thanks so much for having me on and all the lovely kind words you said about me before I hopped on.
Absolutely. Sorry the connection.
Don't worry about it.
But look, hopefully I'll see you.
Fingers crossed. We'll be back soon. Right, take care, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, Christina. Bye.
Bye.